While foreigners have raised a few hackles buying up Australian real estate, an Australian dealmaker's incursion into an historic part of New York has also been dividing locals. An investment fund headed by businessman Alan Dixon has amassed hundreds of properties in the New York area, making it the biggest single investor in family homes there. While some people in the mainly African-American area have welcomed the venture, others worry that soaring property prices will change their neighbourhood forever. Lateline Sasha Koff has the story from New York.
And maybe we only existed on 60% of the ceiling.
This is one of nearly 600 houses Alan Dixon's investment fund has bought in the New York region over the past 3 years. They paid $1 million for it. So what would it fetch now on the market?
In the state we bought it, probably the million has probably gone to $1.5 million. We will be creating an end product that will be closer to $3 million because we're going to do a fully restored and renovated house. But the actual base house in the state it was is probably up 50% in the 2 years that we've owned the house.
His fund of Australian investors has spent $610 million on residential property here. Mostly they buy historic houses in gentrifying neighbourhoods, like Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn.
It is one of our more emerging areas, so rather than perhaps being already established as a really desirable place to live, it's trending. Probably in Sydney terms, it's more of a Redfern than a double bay.
Many houses have been abandoned or are run down. The idea is to buy them cheap, renovate and turn them into luxury homes which command top dollar on the rental market. It's a strategy that's made his company the biggest investor in single-family homes in New York.
So we think that our timing of starting in June 2011 was pretty much perfect.
The fund started buying houses here after the global financial crisis, when property prices in the US had bottomed out and the Australian dollar was at historic highs. With it now weakening, they're banking on even higher returns.
We've already seen things like easing in the iron ore prices and so forth that would suggest an Australian dollar perhaps closer to 75 cents, which will provide some further gains for investors.
There are no auctions here. Homes have a sale price, and Alan Dixon offers all cash for them. It's a strategy would-be homeowners say is pushing up prices, and they just can't compete.
Anybody that comes in with a large amount of money to a community and is able to do what he's doing definitely has the community pigeonholed in a place that is not comfortable for people that don't have the sort of access to money and resources that he does. So it leaves him in a position of power and us not in a position to do much about it right now.
Property prices are going up in Australia, the UK, the US, so we're just a small part of that market and our investors are looking for good options. So unfortunately, it may get harder and harder for regular people to buy houses. And you can see that the sort of classic brownstone continues to all the way down these streets. We're now well into the fall or the autumn and we've lost all the beautiful leaves, but you can imagine in the spring and the summer, the canopy that's created by these well-established trees with the beautiful brownstones either side. It's a very classic New York streetscape.
There's no doubting the attraction of Bed-Stuy. Built in the late 1800s, it's perhaps the largest intact Victorian neighbourhood in all of America. Its brownstone houses underpin Brooklyn's identity. But until recently, it was considered a no-go zone and one of the most dangerous areas of the city.
People think there's some kind of like Beirut or something happening here, and it's not really. It's all like a lot of media hype, and people fall for it, and they've been really brainwashed to believe, it's a bad neighborhood. I think the people who don't have problems are foreigners who are buying in the neighborhood. Foreigners usually don't have issues like American issues of like slavery and all this kind of segregation stuff. So, and they don't have, actually living in Bed-Stuy is almost cool for them.
A predominantly black neighbourhood, Bed-Stuy as it's known, is changing. In just a few decades, it's gone from being 95% African American to about 60%. And some long-time residents hold investors like Alan Dixon responsible for pushing prices up and people out. James McDougall has lived here all his life. His brownstone has been in his family for 4 generations.
This is a very historical church. It has been the center of activism in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I can say Brooklyn.
An active member of Bed-Stuy's Bethany Baptist Church, where civil rights leader Al Sharpton was baptised, James sees investors as a dangerous incursion into his community.
Coming into a neighborhood and charging prices that are not affordable by most people, I think that's morally wrong. I think anytime it comes to money, it has to be a racial thing.
We're doing high quality renovations that attract higher rents, but there's absolutely no colour prejudice as to the tenants that we get, and certainly we would hope that that was never something we were perceived to be part of.
For others like Mrs Butler, who bought her house for $18,000 in the late 1960s, the changes she sees are welcome.
I like it because it's making everybody upgrade their homes and keeping the area better, you know. And it's just encouraging for my daughter, in other words, not wanting to move out.
As the property market continues to squeeze more people out of Manhattan and into other boroughs, Alan Dixon's plan is likely to pay off.
Do you think he's going to make a lot of money from these investments?
Oh, for sure. But yes, there's no doubt that Alan Dixon's going to make a ton of money from investing in this neighborhood. It might have ups and downs, but at the end of the day, he's going to be a very happy man. His grandkids will be too.
Sashka Koloff, Late Line.